Hey there, I'm Mysca and welcome to HitScan, and we've got a PTR patch that hit just last night. Of course, some of you watching this video might actually have already seen all the changes, so I'm gonna cover the changes in the patch fairly quickly along with some issues with it actually. And yeah, this should be pretty quick, but there will be a timestamp in the top comment or on screen or something like that, so you can skip this section if you've already read the patch notes or something along those lines. Anyway, let's start. Custom game options. This is the first thing that I haven't seen as many people mention. The data center preference option is now available in custom game settings, and basically if you have a bunch of players from different geographic regions, you can figure out the best one not just for your connection but for the connection for other players in that lobby. But it's a pretty specific change for only a specific sort of crowd. Next up, the actual juicy stuff, the hero updates. First off, Baptiste, Immortality Field. Maximum duration reduced from 8 to 5 seconds. Cooldown increased from 20 to 25 seconds, so a pretty big nerf to the Immortality Field there. Next up, the Amplification Matrix, which is the Baptiste Ultimate. Amplification Matrix Ultimate cost increased by 20%. That is also a pretty hefty nerf to that Ultimate, but I feel like it's pretty well deserved with Baptiste at this point. He's been very strong for a few weeks now, maybe even months honestly, and yeah, it's just been shredding people in ranked, so good to see that. May, Endothermic Blaster, the primary fire of her weapon. Slowing effect now reduces enemy movement speed from 20 to 70%, down from 30 to 90. And you can see this a little bit in game with these bots, but I'd want to point out as well that the multi-freeze thing is still in there, so you can freeze through targets and multiple people and that stuff, so yeah, still pretty strong. But as well, the slowing effect duration has been reduced from 1.5 to 1 second, so that is a pretty important nerf to May's Endothermic Blaster that you should be able to kind of feel, especially if you play a lot of May, but even playing against May, honestly, especially that 1 to 1.5 second, you should kind of notice that. The question is if this is enough to make her still viable but not annoying, because she's just too easy to hold down left mouse and be really annoying with. We'll see, but I think this was an interesting change. The next one is my favorite one in the entire patch, so that's the Diva Boosters change. The cooldown has been decreased from 5 to 3 seconds. I think this will be a huge change, and I will talk more about this a little bit later on into the video, but I thought this was really cool, and you can see how fast you can sort of zip between targets now. Next up, Arisa, Fortify. Damage reduction reduced from 50% to 40%, so this is on the Fortify ability that gives Arisa CC as well, and I think this is kind of well deserved. Arisa is just a very strong character, and this is just kind of a tweak, but it definitely does matter. Hanzo's Storm Arrow primary fire. The maximum projectile speed has been reduced from 125 to 110, and we also have a developer comment here that I thought I'd read real quick. The way Hanzo arrows work is there is a base speed of 25 and it adds another bonus speed determined by how long the shot was charged up. Last patch this was 25 plus 100x charge for a total maximum speed of 125. The PTR value is now 25 plus 85 charge, so the max speed is now 110, the same value as it was before the Hanzo rework. Very interesting. That's a pretty big deal, as it's essentially a revert and you kind of have more projectiles now rather than before where, well, it just felt like the arrows were so fast that it didn't matter. The only issue I really see with this still is that Hanzo's spam ability is not really affected by this, so it'll still be annoying to play against this character, but it definitely does have some effect, just not in that spam department. Doomfist, Rising Uppercut. Uppercut recovery time increased from 0.2 to 0.5 seconds, so another tweak for Doomfist there. Honestly, not quite sure how impactful that will be for Doomfist players, but I'm sure they will make themselves heard if this change is a little bit too much. But yeah, I'm really not sure how that will feel as a Doomfist player. Alright, with all of these changes out of the way, the main ones I've seen people focus on is really the Baptiste nerf and the Arisa change, mostly because those characters have just been so central and just integral to the meta recently, and have probably been some of the most meta-defining characters in recent months. Now, I don't want to focus too much on Baptiste, because you can obviously tell yourself by just looking at the patch note that this is kind of a big deal to the character, but I think the big thing about all of this is that it should really affect the meta in one way or another, looking at the whole patch, looking at the heroes that have kind of been targeted. But the one that I really want to talk about that might not be as obvious as will this actually change something or not is actually Diva. So Diva received the cooldown decrease from 5 to 3 seconds on the boosters. Now, this is a pretty huge mobility buff. It's almost slashed the cooldown in half from what it was before, and the boosters are very useful, not just for traveling around the map normally quicker, but also up to high ground, and on top of that to boop people and such. So that could be a massive deal, and I really want to see the game shift a little bit. And now with Baptiste Matrix being a little bit sort of more difficult to get by upping that ultimate cost and other things like that, I'm hoping that we can eventually see a return of Diva Winston, because I would love to play that tank duo again. I think it's really fun, and honestly, I wouldn't even say that it's a matter of that dive is just flat out better. I've just missed it as a tank player for so long. I have not really played a lot of Winston for months, up to maybe even years at this point. I don't even remember last time I played Winston properly. And I know here and there he can work, but it's just not been a very meta character at all. Now, mobility changes in particular to characters in MOBAs and in Overwatch tend to really change the game up. Mobility abilities for characters tend to also be those sort of very crucial abilities that you just kind of have to get right, and now that Diva has one on an incredibly low cooldown, it just doesn't really seem like something could go wrong there. In terms of mobility, Diva is just a fantastic tank right now. Now, I think the question still stands if this will actually do enough for Diva to bring her back, and judging from how low down she is on the overall pick rate and win rate graphs, if you look at just all ranks in competitive, then I don't really think so. But this is the thing with Overwatch. Sometimes changes like these start pushing characters in one way and they start gaining momentum, and then the developers might go, oh, this is not really enough, but if we just change her a little bit more, Diva should be viable. And that's really the point where she will either be completely OP or just remain in her kind of current state. And that's really when that will be tested, but I think this could definitely be one of those sort of first steps to bringing that back. I would love to see that myself, but only time can tell for sure, and I'll get you the stats and updated sort of look at this when this hits live. And that's the next thing. The patch here might be incredibly important, as we are getting this patch right now. On the 9th of January was when this hit US time, and we also got a confirmation from an Overwatch League staff member, I believe it's the senior product manager actually, who said that this is the patch that the Overwatch League will be played on for the very start of the season. That's huge, and additionally on top of all that, you have the Chinese New Year event coming up that should be hitting, if I had to guess, roughly around the 21st or so. That means that we could get this patch with the Chinese New Year update as well, and then that, together with the Overwatch League playing this patch as well, could really be the next sort of era of the meta, the next few months of the meta. Maybe era is a little bit of a strong word, but at least meta episode in Overwatch. This could be the patch right here. Now, I think it's also important to point out that I'm by no means saying that Diva will just become meta here, but judging from how much actual testing goes into the PTR and how much feedback we get from there that tends to affect the patch, which is essentially next to none, we won't really know until this update hits live servers and people who will want to play Diva and want to try out this buff find out if this is actually helping them out or if it's just not enough against this new meta, whatever it may be. Once again, looking at pick rates though, with Baptiste very strongly in the top, just after Reinhardt there, this should at least affect Baptiste quite heavily and solve the issues we've seen Baptiste create, at least at sort of higher levels of play, where people play him a lot more efficiently and can get way more ultimates out and way more damage dished out. Now, I don't claim this video to be some sort of full analysis of what the next meta will be. I think that's a very difficult thing to do, but I'm sure we'll do some cool interviews with people here and there to ask them how they think the hero that they're expert on will actually change and potentially do better or worse with this patch. Alright, that's everything for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like if you did and subscribe. You know, the usual YouTubey stuff. Thank you again for watching, and yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.